Yeshua, your King of praise. Shalom, everyone. This is Messianic Rabbi Buzz Tremé, the Jew teaching you. Welcome to our Bible study. Yeshua, you are the way. Yeshua, you're you turn my
So, the Edenic covenant, they were to be fruitful and multiply, and they were to subjugate the planet. Put it under your feet, rule over it. And the problem is, once they sin, it becomes a real challenge. You go to stomp something, it had thorns in it. You know, you want to fight the enemy and rule over things, but you're busy trying to earn a living by the sweat of your brow. Frustration exists. But God did not remove the original command, go forth, be fruitful, multiply, cover the earth, and subdue it. He didn't remove it. He just said it's going to be a challenge to you like never before. But it's okay because God had a plan. One of these days Yeshua would take... Do you know that Romans 16:20 says that the God of peace will soon crush Satan, under your feet. Your feet. We win. We win this thing, man. It's good. Okay. The partners of the covenant, the Edenic covenant was made by God with man. Adam and Chava, Eve, and the entire human race within them. When the Bible talks about this couple, it talks about humanity. The word Adam means human. Okay? Chava means mother of the living. So, this woman who transgressed did not lose her calling and her function to reproduce and bring forth life so the earth could be covered with her people that look like her. We did a DNA test one time, something to do with our Jewish roots and all, and we did that. And Lorraine's came back and said, she is a direct descendant from Eve. I said, what? And in genealogy, there's a whole group, these haplogroups and so on. But they said that what's in your veins, in your blood, in your DNA, it actually was found back in the first people groups, and they referred to it as Chava, Eve. Isn't that weird? I don't understand all of that. But it's interesting that my wife's a lot older than you think. No, she's not. She's a doll. But anyway, moving right along. Okay. Adam was the federal head of the human race. Remember, his sidekick, his helper, she's right there with him. It's not good for him to be alone. You know, sometimes people have arguments, couples do, and they need some space. You just want to be alone, huh? Well, it's kind of normal, so you can think clearly, but you can't do it as like, I need space and never will you see me again. That's not the plan, okay? Because, especially if you make vows, Anyway, and we all fall short of God's glory, huh? Thank God for Jesus. Okay, so, where am I? 4. The sign or seal of the covenant stands out very clear, the tree of life. Tree of life. If there's anything good in that whole setting, there was this one tree. And it sounds like a child's story, kindergarten story or something, but God actually set this thing up and there was a whole lot of meat in it. I've studied it for years. It's amazing the meat that's in it. Remember, Adam and his wife would be shadows and types of Yeshua and his bride. Okay, remember in Ephesians chapter 5, Paul was saying, hey, don't you know that the man is the head and the wife is his helper? This is the way God ordained it. It works better. He needs her, she needs him. And this is how God set it up. And he says, and he goes on to talk about, for this reason a man lays himself down for his wife, that she might be washed with the word. And he's going back to that story. See, the woman was made for the man, but she got herself in a situation where the man was separated from her because he was righteous and she wasn't. But what did he do? He loved her. And because of it, he said, I'm going to trust God in this. He's given us commands. And some kind of way, I'm sure he'll pull it off. But I know one thing, he gave you to me, and I love you. And he joined her in her sin. And that is commendable when you get into the story of the Bible. Yeshua came to get a bride, but the bride looked like a hooker, right? She was just dirty and immoral. Proverbs 31 says a woman that's immoral, she doesn't have boundaries. This is detestable to God. A woman's supposed to have, her beauty is supposed to be something from within that radiates outward that you just can't wait to, that you want to know her because she's so beautiful. I see her beauty radiating, not at all hanging out, and then you see temporary beauty that later fades and you go, you don't look like the same woman I first got. Well, no kidding. Go look in the mirror, old man. Oh, I guess I'm hitting toes here. You're all looking at each other. I'm just having a little fun. My wife's not here, and I can cut up. She's my helper. Help keep me in line. I love my wife. That's why I'm always joking about her. Right? Do I have a witness? Can I get a witness? All right, where am I? The words of the covenant. Be fruitful and multiply and subdue the earth. That's the big command. Okay? God gives them that. Now, where and when? It was in the Garden of Eden, and it was when God had first made man. First thing he did was take him, put him in the garden and say, eat anything you want, no animals now. Eat any fruit and veggies, nuts, have a good time. Stay away from that tree because you will then be like me. You'll gain knowledge of good and evil. Man was destined to learn the knowledge of good and evil. He could never be complete and like God without that knowledge. So, gives him a test. Do you think God knew he was going to do it? Of course he did. And think of the powers in the heavens watching. And they think, oh yeah, Adam blew it. And all the time, they're just getting pulled into the net. God is wise. So, okay, the blood. Is that where we are? Okay. The blood of the covenant. And the blood here would be the blood when Adam was laid down. Remember? He had to lay down like Yeshua would lay down that a bride may come out of him. He would die for the world that his bride could be born. And when she's fully formed, he'll return to face her. And then he'll go, wow! And so Adam laid down, and from his side came materials that brought forth his wife. So the blood of that covenant would be the blood of Adam that was shed to get him a wife. Cool? All right. The dietary code, they could eat from any tree in the garden, and it was a big, big place. And by the way, don't think of this desert that exists in the Middle East today. This would not have been that way. This would have been a plush garden atmosphere like Hawaii, just gorgeous. And this is where the man and the woman were. And they were naked, and they were having a good old time without nothing to disturb them. And they were to work the garden. They were created to be workers. All right? Work for God. And so they did. The dietary codes, they could eat all of this. Of course, no animals. And they could not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because when they did, it would cause death. They would be separated from God's life. God is life, and when you're separated from it, There's a noticeable, it's noticeable. So they recognize, once they sin, they recognize, uh-oh. Now, so you know the dietary code. The mediator, nobody. God with man, all right? Fulfillment of the covenant, Yeshua restores fallen man by removing his sin. His weakness, see, is his sin nature. God takes care of that by nullifying it. He declares it null and void. You no longer have power to kill this person. That is some kind of cool. Therefore, removing the penalty of death. If I'm not guilty of my sins, I can't die. That's the way it is. So I've been given life, even though my body will wear out and be buried, but the moment it does, my spirit goes on living and then returns with the Lord for the resurrection to get my new body. Then we're ready to rule and reign in perfection. Okay, rewarding him with life, and he brings him back to access to the tree of life, which he had been separated from. Genesis 3:22-24 says that God, once man goofed up, he placed him outside the garden, away from the tree of life. Okay? The fulfillment is Yeshua brings us back to the tree of life. And he accomplishes everything. In the end, everything will be under mankind who is completely righteous in every aspect. Yeshua does this. He brings it back to where everything is under us. Psalm 8 says, what is man? Written by David, around 1000 BC. He says, when I see the heavens and I consider the works of your hands, the stars and all that you've created, I can only say, oh God, what is man that you are mindful of him? And the Son of Man, meaning his offspring, that you even take thought of him. Right? He says, for you placed all things under him. That's what it says in Psalm 8. Hebrews chapter 2 speaks on that subject. So does 1 Corinthians 15. And says, he must reign, and that means us with him, until he has put all his enemies under his feet. And when he has done this, he then presents the kingdom to the Father and says, sir, your kingdom in perfect order. Everything subdued. It's yours. And he said, then God will be all in all. 1 Corinthians 15. Isn't that cool? So this story is about restoration. Yeshua is the restorer of all things. And I'm so glad he chose me. He chose you. He chose you. I mean, that is not a small thing. He chose us. I mean, it's not something, you can't buy this gift. God singled us out. He saw something in us he liked. He saw a lot of weakness, didn't he? He says, oh, that's cool. I can make that strong.
Show us your